Joining me now, Trey Goins-Phillips, Faithwire.com. Trey, you spoke with Franklin Graham yesterday because a lot of competing narratives going on about the Samaritans Purse field hospital that they announced that they're going to be heading out of there here in the coming days because of a reduced amount of patients. So what happened, Trey? What was the controversy?
Yeah, so really it's the controversy that never should have been a controversy that started in, I guess, the beginning of April, because April 1st was when Samaritans Purse first arrived in New York City and set up their field hospital in Central Park. And then ever since then, they've been going back and forth with a handful of, and literally a small handful of activists and politicians in the city who were angry the fact that they were there offering help because of the fact that they were Christian and that they hold to a biblical understanding of marriage. And why that has any impact on any of the work they do, I don't know. But I talked to Franklin Graham yesterday about what's going on. Why are they leaving now? There were some reports saying that they were leaving because politicians had put enough pressure on them for being anti-LGBTQ that they just needed to leave and get out of the city. But Franklin Graham told us that was not the case at all. He said they've been planning to leave for weeks and we're just waiting on their case numbers to get down. And they're at that point now. They had, as of yesterday afternoon, they had 2 remaining patients there. And he said it's just a matter of numbers. They don't need to be there anymore, which is a good thing. But after a month of taking more than 300 patients, they're reaching a point where it's safe for them to leave.
I think it says a lot about some of these politicians. We saw Mayor de Blasio at the beginning of the Samaritans Purse arriving there, talking about sending monitors. We reported on that, back when it happened, about they were sending monitors to make sure that there were no hateful interactions or, people being discriminated against for their, sexual orientation and things of that nature. And, of course, we all suspect that those are wildly unwarranted claims and, just completely baseless claims. And of course, none of that stuff happened that we know of, because it never happens with Samaritan's Purse. Yet this seems to be the image that a lot of people have of Samaritan's Purse, of Franklin Graham. So what do you make of that whole dynamic as to why, these politicians seem bent on, stirring this division in this time?
Yeah, I asked Franklin Graham about that particularly, and he said, well, the only thing is that we have a statement of faith that we require our staffers to sign that says that they adhere to a biblical worldview of things like marriage, which means, marriage is only between a man and a woman, but
Right.
it covers a whole multitude of other things. But he said to us, and he said to many other outlets over the years, Samaritan's Purse has never turned away anybody in need of help. And also an interesting fact that I got from that interview yesterday is it was Mount Sinai that actually reached out to him. They reached out to Samaritan's Purse and asked them to come to the city. So they were in need and they reached out to Samaritan's Purse to come and help. This wasn't something that Samaritan's Purse took on themselves. It wasn't something that they forced themselves into New York City. They were asked by the hospitals in the city to come and help. And that's exactly what they did. And they never turned away anybody in need. Like you said, that's never happened with Samaritan's Purse. It didn't happen here, and it's not going to happen any other time. And it's just, I don't understand this whole notion that because they have a different worldview than me, they can't be here to help. If I was sick and I needed help, I would be more than happy to take help from a Jewish doctor, from a Muslim doctor, from an atheist doctor or organization. Because the reality is, if you're sick and you can't breathe, I don't think that the patient actually needing care minds what your worldview is.
Right, and there seems to be these two competing caricatures of, or at least one caricature of Samaritan's Purse that runs in direct opposition to actually how they behave on the ground. And it's interesting because we also reported on a local there in New York City who lived right across the street from where the hospital, the field hospital, was being put up. And he had not really known much about Samaritan's Purse, so he saw this field hospital going up and wanted to volunteer. And, of course, his friends who were left-leaning and secular were like, what are you doing? This is a hate group. And he went over there to volunteer, and one of the rumors going around in New York was that you wouldn't be able to volunteer for Samaritan's Purse at the field hospital if you didn't believe in, the traditional biblical definition of marriage between a man and a woman. And this guy who counts himself a liberal and, believes in same-sex marriage and all this stuff came over to volunteer, and they put him right to work. So he debunked that narrative right out of the chute.
Yeah, well, like you said, he is a non-believer. He's not a Christian. His wife is Jewish, and both of them are really strong supporters of the LGBTQ community. But in our interview yesterday with Franklin Graham, he described him as an incredible guy and said that, like you said, he volunteered day in and day out, helping pitch the tents, helping mulch the area for sidewalks. Actually, one day, Franklin said that he went to Costco and got a whole carload of food and brought it back to all of the Samaritans Purse doctors and nurses and volunteers for them to have lunch one day. So they had a great relationship, and Franklin Graham said they still have a good relationship with him. So that totally debunks that claim entirely. There is no requirement for a volunteer. This is strictly about paid salaried staff members who are working with Samaritan's Purse. So it was, like I said at the very beginning of this video, it was a controversy that was never really a controversy.
So where do things stand now with Samaritan's Purse Field Hospital? I know they're winding down. So what is ahead for them in the next couple days?
Yeah, so they're caring for their remaining 2 patients, and Franklin Graham told us that they should be out of the hospital, their field hospital, by the end of the week. And they're continuing to coordinate with another local hospital in the Mount Sinai system, the Beth Israel Hospital. The Samaritan's Purse doctors are continuing to coordinate with them as they wind down over the next week or two. But the field hospital in Central Park will be gone by the end of the week, as long as everything goes according to plan. And then all of the doctors coordinating with Mount Sinai will be gone within the next 2 weeks. But Franklin Graham said the relationship with Mount Sinai remains strong. They have a great partnership and will continue to work together as needed.
Yeah, and it's good to see some people with some backbone actually allow this sort of thing to happen. So hopefully all the New Yorkers there that were very concerned, their fears were alleviated a little bit, that maybe they were much ado about nothing in their concerns about what the evil Samaritan's Purse is going to be doing there on the ground.
And one other thing that I wanted to say that I thought was awesome is that Franklin Graham said, because of the controversy, because of all the work that we were able to do helping more than 300 patients, everybody in New York City knows why Samaritan's Purse was there. They saw the tents, or they heard about the tents. He said we were there to help people in Jesus' name. So one way or the other, everybody there heard about the reason they were there and got a taste of the gospel, which I thought was a great perspective.
That is great. All right, Trey, thanks a lot.
Thanks.